Now we begin Learning Unit 3. This is the era of American literature that takes place in the 1800s. During this time, there was a great emergence of the short story. So we're going to look at three major short story writers of this era. First, we'll start with Nathaniel Hawthorne. He is an ancestor of the Puritans, so he was interested in questioning their views on religion and on the nature of evil. Beyond that, he's also interested in looking at the Enlightenment era, to see how that affected human nature. Then we look at Washington Irving. He was particularly interested in looking at how there was a non-British European tradition or influence in America. One of his primary interests was in showing how America was actually a unique country in itself and a unique culture, and not merely the little sister of the British Empire. Lastly, we'll look at Edgar Allan Poe. His stories are somewhat complex. He tends to almost always write in first person. However, it's very important to recognize that the first person narrator he uses in his stories is not himself. He's writing a fictitious story, inventing a character. In addition, he tends to follow a model or a formula that ultimately seeks to elicit horror or shock from his reader. That's not always the intended effect, but it's his most common intended effect in his writing. Now, despite the fact that he uses a model or a formulaic approach to story writing, his stories tend to be very complex, partly due to the difficulty of some of the vocabulary and sentence structures that he uses, but also because he's often seeking to get into a very deep, philosophical, complex arguments. We'll discuss those as we get into our discussion of the stories this unit.